guys, Mark Holthe here. As you can see, I am not alone in this session. I'm here with my good friend Chris Enders. Chris is a former IELTS examiner, and our topic that we're going to be covering today is this: how to increase my language scores. Now, as you guys know, I am not a language instructor. I am a Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher. Yes, teacher, but I've never dealt with anything like this. So I knew that I had to pull in someone that you guys could really benefit from, because I know how important language is. And those of you who are looking to immigrate to Canada, unless you can score high on the IELTS exam or the Canadian version, the CELPIP, you're not immigrating. It's as simple as that. So, because it's so important, I wanted to bring Chris Enders on of the Canadian Mosaic English Language School based in Edmonton, Alberta, and he is my guy. So, Chris, give us a little bit of an overview on IELTS. What is this thing?
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the amazing introduction. So, first of all, about IELTS, the thing that everybody needs to remember is that this is not a traditional style grammar test or vocabulary test where you memorize things and write lists, or you need to label this is an adjective, this is a verb, this is an adverb. This is a test of your communication ability in English, how well you can read, how well you can write, listen, and speak. And so what we're talking about here are not memorization skills, it's communication skills. And practice makes perfect. And so what we need to do here is set up a training program. People need to think of themselves as athletes who are preparing for a competition, or a piano player who is preparing for a performance. You can't read a book and get better at playing the piano. You can't read a book or watch videos and get better at playing soccer. You have to go out on the field and kick that ball 100 times if you want to get better at kicking the ball. And it's the same thing with IELTS or TOEFL or CELPIP or anything else that you're taking. You have to practice communication if you want to get better at communication.
Excellent. And that's a great analogy. So, okay, so where do we start? You know, if you were to think about the ways in which you can get better, this training program, how does it work? What do you do?
All right, well, first of all, you need to have some sort of things to train with, like the Cambridge IELTS practice test books. These are exactly what students need to succeed in the IELTS test. Forget all of the other textbooks that are teaching you this and teaching you that. This is what you need for training. But then, just the pages themselves are not enough. There's no lessons or anything in here. What you need to do is have a procedure or a set of steps so that as you practice the steps, you get better and better. It's the perfection of the steps of the procedure that will rise. For example, a good analogy, since we're hopefully going to have summer sometime here soon, is everybody's going out to start to play baseball. And if you want to play baseball and practice hitting the ball, you have step 1, you place your feet. Step 2, your hips. Step 3, your elbows. And you swing and you practice this and practice it. And you have a coach, and that coach watches. And that coach sees what you do well and sees what you need to improve on and makes some steps for you to follow so that the next time you do it, you can do it better. And then you practice doing it better over and over again. And this is what raises your level and what makes you better at your sport or at your musical instrument or at IELTS. And so what we're going to do today is do a really fast crash course into some steps so that after you watch the next 15 minutes or so, you're going to have a little study program that you can use in combination with these Cambridge IELTS books and train yourself to succeed rather than study and get the same score over and over again. And so, Mark,
I just wanted to jump in for a second. So you've got your materials that you recommend, but there are tons of materials out there all the time. In my Express Entry Law Facebook group, people are constantly talking about all these other materials. So why are those materials the ones that you trust?
These materials are the ones that I trust because they're from the people that write the actual test. And so you can, when you do one of the tests in these Cambridge books, this is authentic. It's what it's like to do the test beyond the class, sitting in the classroom and the pressure and everything. But this is an experience or an authentic experience for the test. Textbooks and things like this, these are teaching you to memorize. And when you're memorizing, it's stronger and stronger. It's not your English ability. It's better to have a few words that you can use very well in many situations than to have many, many words that you use poorly. And so, again, it's practice that makes perfect. But it's perfect practice that makes perfect quickly.
Exactly. Awesome. Okay, well, let's dive in.
All right. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about is reading today, Mark. So on the reading test, step number 1. Or point number 1 on the reading test is never read the reading test. There are thousands of words on a reading article in these tests, especially if you're doing an academic test. But there's only a few questions. And so the skill is not to be able to read quickly and remember everything and then write the correct answer. The skill is being able to know what's important to read and what's not important to read. And when I can do this, now I isolate an answer and I can compare the meaning of that keyword in a text with the meaning of the keywords in the question. And I can make a choice quickly and efficiently, and I'm not getting confused by all the other reading that I'm doing, and I'm not wasting my time. And so, again, point 1 is never read the reading test.
Chris, I should have hired you to help me before I wrote my LSAT exam, my legal exam. My goodness, that was my biggest issue, reading everything in the comprehensive section. Okay, all right, you got my ear now. I'm listening.
All right, so what we need to do first is look at types. We'll do it this way. Circle keywords. In the title, headings, and topic sentences. This does two things for us. It gives us context. Since we're not going to read the article, we need some idea of what's in it. And so this is the way we get our context. Secondly, we're circling these keywords because in step 2, we're circling keywords in the question. In the questions and the answers. And so now I can number 1 and find the keywords, and I compare it with the keywords in the question. And so when I find that keyword, now I read a sentence for understanding, and I compare that sentence with the question and the answers in the question, and I can make my choice. I'm not reading and reading and reading and reading. And so then we move on to the next step here, which is skimming and scanning. Oops, that's not how you spell scan. Now, I ask people all the time, do you know the meaning of skimming and scanning? And of course everybody says yes, but really I haven't found very many people that actually know what these words
Don't ask me.
Skimming and scanning. Scanning is looking for numbers. And so if the question has the date 2001, I don't read every word in the text until I arrive at 2001. I simply look for numbers. When I see a number, I look at it. If it's 2001, great. I found the location of my answer. If it's not, I just look for the next number. And skimming is the same, but it's with words. And so if I'm looking for the word noodle, all I do is look for words that begin with N, and I run my finger over it, and if I see a word that begins with N, I stop and I look at it. If it's noodle, great. I've found the location of my answer. If it's not, I just continue looking for the next word that begins with N until I find that key word. Now I've found my target sentence. And again, here is where you read for understanding. You read one sentence, compare the meaning of that sentence with the question and the choices. And now I can make a proper choice. And I didn't waste a lot of time reading unnecessary things and confusing myself. And I go on to the next question and the next question. If you've done an IELTS test before, hopefully you've recognized that the questions are in a sequence. And so if I can find the beginning of that sequence with the questions, then this sequence will help me to progress through the text faster. Question number 2 is after question number 1. Question number 3 is after question number 2. And so by doing this, it helps me to keep moving along. It helps me to feel positive. I'm succeeding, so I'm not getting frustrated and bogged down. Which brings me to the next point. The questions on this test, or actually the articles on this test, are not what's easy and difficult. The articles are authentic, real texts from everyday life. They're from newspapers and magazines if you're taking the general test. They're from scientific articles and journals if you're taking the academic test. And so they're just written for native English speakers. Nothing is more hard or less hard about them. It's the questions that are hard and difficult. And so the hardest question is a band 9. The easiest question is a band 1. Well, technically, band 1 means that you paid your money and you came and wrote your name on the test paper, but after this, they go up. But the lowest levels are questions where it's a direct correlation, a direct relationship. And as they get more difficult, the questions become more abstract. We need to do things like read between the lines. We need to understand something that is implied. And so often, at these very highest levels, these questions don't follow the pattern anymore of question 1 in paragraph 1, question 2 in paragraph 2. I get to where I think question 3 should be, but I can't find it. And so what should I do next? I don't want to go through now and start reading and looking and looking and looking because I'm wasting my time. What I do is skip question number 3. Try to pick up that sequence again with question 4 and move on to question 5. And while I'm answering the rest of these questions, I'm going to eventually stumble onto the keywords for question 3, and I'm going to be able to answer that question quickly and efficiently without wasting a lot of time looking for it.
Chris, so I can tell you, I wish that you would have been around when I was writing that test. Now, fortunately, I had a GPA that was high enough, and I was able to compensate for my poor comprehension exam scores. But those principles would apply to any test, not just IELTS, CELPIP, TOEFL, 100%.
Yeah, especially if you're doing an A test, an academic test, and you're a student. Think about when you were a student at university and you get a research question or an essay question. You find your keywords in the question, you go to the library and get a big stack of books. And at least when I was in university, you did it this way. Sit down at the table with your stack of books and you open the first book. But you don't read that book from cover to cover. You know where to look in that book. You have research skills to find the chapter or the paragraph or even that one sentence that you need out of that book. And you get your information, close the book, grab the next one, and do the same thing. You don't read those research books from cover to cover. And it's the same thinking that's going to help you succeed on the IELTS test. So that's it, skimming and scanning. Also, the last thing on here is choose the question sets to do first. Choose specific detail questions. Before general idea questions. For example, students' biggest nemesis, their enemy, their biggest problem on the reading test are questions that are heading matching questions, where we have an article that has 10 paragraphs and there are 13 maybe headings, and the candidate must choose the right heading for the right paragraph. Our step number one was don't read the reading test. And so how can we match these headings to the paragraphs if we've never read them before? The question is or the secret is to leave these questions until last. As we're doing these skimming and scanning questions first, we're finding the main idea. Question 1 is in paragraph 1. Question 2 is in paragraph 2. And so as I go through these paragraphs and find these keys and I'm circling the keywords, now when I finish this, I'm ready to go on to these general idea questions and answer them quickly and efficiently too. I've found the keywords, and so now I just match that keyword in the heading with the keywords in the paragraphs. And again, I don't need to read a whole bunch of things that will confuse me and twist me around. That's what these high-level questions here do again. They try to play with the grammar, play with the syntax or the word order, and confuse you. And so if you don't want to be confused, don't read unnecessary things. And so there is the crash course in reading.
Reading, awesome.
Now let's go on to listening. Listening is 60% about reading. And this is the big thing that everyone needs to realize, is that you're using two senses when you're doing the listening test. They're playing the audio tape, but at the same time you've got questions in front of you. The questions and the answers, or the questions and the choices, are a big summary of the listening text. The same thing as the questions and answers on the reading test are a big summary. And so by reading through the questions, you get to know what's in paragraph 1, what's in paragraph 2, what's in paragraph 3. The same as the listening test. And so step 1 of the listening test is pre-reading. Where, just like here, I want to circle all the key words in the questions and the answers. And now that I've got my key words, I'm ready to listen. And so while I'm listening, I'm looking at these key words that I have. Also, at this pre-reading time, oops, that's not a G. IELTS is about everyday life situations, whether you're a student or you're immigrating. Are all about everyday life things. If you have everyday life experience like we all do, it's possible to just from your own logic and experience to guess the right answer, or to guess a word that's a synonym for the right answer. And so while I'm listening, if I've written my guesses down on the page and I can see the guess and I listen to that key word, it's going to increase my chances of getting the right answer exponentially. And I see this every day. I see people's eyes light up the first time they do the test with this method, and they're getting the right answer and they can't believe it. Simply because they started using their eye along with their ear while doing the listening test. And so the second thing is, after the recording starts to play. Now here's the biggest complaint mark about everyone on the test. They say, I don't have enough time to think. They listen and listen and listen, and then you quickly have to make a decision, and listen and listen and listen and quickly make a decision. But this is the wrong way to be going about it. Just like the reading test, where I don't need to understand and read every single word on the test, it's the same with the listening. I don't need to listen to every single word and understand every word. I need to know when it's important to listen and when it's not important to listen. And so, I call this the leapfrog approach. Everybody knows how a frog moves. It jumps. And so, I jump ahead of the listening. I answer question 1, and I jump ahead, and with my eye, I'm looking at the key words that I've circled for question 2, and my choices that I've guessed. And The listening starts to catch up. I hear a transition signal, or I hear the speaker change, and now I know the answer is coming soon, and so now I need to listen carefully. And when I hear those key words, when I hear a synonym for my guess, I write the answer, and I jump ahead again. And so instead of following behind the listening or trying to keep up at the same time, I'm always staying ahead of the listening. And so now I have lots of time to think about things and to judge things. I can anticipate the answer before the audio arrives. And so I've already weeded out maybe 2 choices or 3 choices, and I'm just waiting to confirm my answer. And again, this is the proper way to do the listening test. And once again, it's practice that makes perfect. And so get your Cambridge IELTS books and practice the steps. I guess I should probably write the steps, shouldn't I? Leapfrog. Leapfrog to stay ahead of the recording. Now, so this is pretty much it. We're finished with our receptive skills, the receiving of information through our eye and through our ear. Now we're going to move on to the productive skills, the speaking and the writing part. And so the first thing, the most important thing is the writing, which we're going to do first. And so the most important thing to pay attention to with writing is paragraph structure. This is the key to everything else. It's like the bones in your body. If I don't have any bones, I have no life. I have no ability to, or I have no shape. And it's the same as your essay. Or another way to think of it is as a bookcase. A bookcase has the different levels, and you organize books both horizontally and vertically. And it's the same as your paragraph structure in your essay. And so we need to think of this like an onion. Picture an onion. An onion starts out small in the middle, and it gets many levels, many layers as it goes out. And this is the key to your writing score. People who get the same score, 6.5, again and again and again and again, their problem is that they're always writing on the same level of this onion, or they only write on 2 different levels of the onion. And so they never get that score for going deeper with their ideas and deeper with their structure. And so the way that this onion looks in a paragraph is first a topic sentence. And so here's the outermost layer of our onion. And then we have a main idea. To support my topic. And now I have detail. And then I have an example. This is the basic structure of logic. If you look at the IELTS band descriptors, right here, band 7 for your cohesion and coherence score says that you've organized your paragraphs logically. Band 6 says you've got them in an order that's easy to understand, or it progresses from beginning to end. But Band 7 says it's logical. Logical means that you've made a statement, you've got points to back up the statement, and then you've got evidence or proof to prove the point. And this is what everybody's missing. When you continue to score 6.5, it's because you don't do this. And so, the first reason why I like blue is because it makes me calm. I have a stressful job, I have a stressful life, but for example, when I look out the window and see the blue sky, it helps me to relax and it frees my mind. And so,
now, Chris, I have to admit that when I think about what you've just said there, I think not only am I going to hire you to help me as I prepare for my little journey to write the IELTS, but I'm also going to come to your house and lay on your couch and have you counsel me as a result of this super stressful job that I have representing people in this crazy world that we call Express Entry. So understand, man, you're helping me with the language here. You're helping all of our listeners with the language, but there's some therapy going on here too.
You know what? I was actually going to hit you up for some advice, Mark, because I don't know how you get up in the morning and do all the things that you do during the day. I would be run ragged. I am run ragged doing what I do. I have no idea how you do what you do. But anyways, so this is the basic structure. Now, I repeat this structure. Doing this one time doesn't really prove anything. To show that I'm a master, I need to be able to reproduce this at will. I need to do it several times during my exam. Doing it only once is not enough. Maybe I got lucky. And so, the perfect essay has 3 of these. I've got my topic sentence and these 3 blocks of main idea, detail, example. Main idea 2, detail, example. Main idea 3, detail. And so if you've got paragraphs set up like this is a recipe for a band 9. Again, it's not easy to score a band 9. And you don't need to score the band 9. If you're looking for a band 7, you'll get away with having 2 of these in each paragraph. But it depends on how much practice you have before your test. This is the paragraph structure, though, and it's replicated to help you succeed in your IELTS writing test. Now, we slap an introduction paragraph and a conclusion paragraph. I've got one side of the argument. I need to reproduce this for the other side of the argument. And if it's asking for my opinion, I need to reproduce this structure one more time for my opinion. This should be like this. Side 1 of the issue, side 2 of the issue, my side of the issue. These things must balance each other. Again, on the IELTS band descriptors, at band 6, it says that you've made all the points, but you have developed some more than others. You don't have balance. And again, many people do side 1 and side 2 well, but then they only have 1 or 2 sentences for their own opinion, which is not enough to get up to that logical band. Also, here's another killer. People put their opinion or develop their opinion in the conclusion paragraph. If you're a university student, you know that you can't develop new points in the conclusion. Conclusion is for summarizing and closing only. And so if I mention my opinion only in the conclusion paragraph, I'm stuck with a band 5 because I've broken the structure of my essay. Same thing, I've heard lots and lots of advice about don't mention your opinion in the introduction. Write it only in the conclusion. And this, it makes me want to bang my head against the wall, Mark. Your opinion, everybody who's watching this, your opinion is your thesis. And the whole essay is about supporting your opinion, why you are right with what you believe. If you don't put your opinion until the end, then no one knows the purpose of your essay. And so it's unclear. And you end up with a band 5 again as maximum for your task response score. And you suffer for your cohesion and coherence score because our metaphor of the bookshelf, you've got the books on the wrong shelf now. So this is the key for writing, or for the organization of your writing. Now I can move on to my connective words. Every idea here needs to be joined to the next idea and the one that comes before it. And I do this with words like first. Oops, that's not R either. Second. Third. And then inside here, I need to be able to join my main ideas and details together. Here I can have a firstly. Secondly. Also. Furthermore, on the other hand, as well, in addition, every time I use these words, my cohesion and coherence score goes up. When I use them correctly and I use a variety, now I'm moving up past band 7 again for my cohesion and coherence. These are the words that help us to travel these layers of the onion. And when I can do this back and forth several times through my essay, now I'm showing my mastery of the skill.
Awesome.
This brings us to grammar. Now, grammar is all about, again, the connective words. If I say simply, I am Chris, I am Canadian, I speak English, I've got a maximum band 5, even though I've made no mistakes. Who writes like this? Children in grade 1 who are learning to write. And so if you're writing like this, this is the score that you can expect. I need to do something like, I am Chris, who is Canadian and teaches English. Now I've got all those ideas into one long chain. And this is exactly what you need to do. Be thinking that every sentence that you write should have at least 3 clauses in it, or phrase-clause combinations. Those sentences have to be long. They have to look like a native English-speaking adult can write them, not like a child writes them. Band 6 means you do this, but you have many mistakes. So don't worry about Band 6. Band 7 means you're getting it right a little more than half of the time. And so that's not that much. People's problem is always with that their sentences are too short. I often hear people say, write simple things, then you don't make mistakes. Terrible advice. If you want to show your skill, you have to do difficult things. Just like that piano player again. Maybe I'm Chopin, or maybe I'm Mozart, but if I only play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, no one can see my genius. No one can see the years and years of practice and study that I've put in. The song has to be complex enough that I can show my true skill. And so, how do we do this with the grammar? My key words are which, while, where, when, who, whose, that, since, during, before, after, because. All of these words are joining my ideas together into longer and longer chains. We're going to get onto the speaking test in a minute, and we're going to talk about these as well. In speaking, we don't use full stops. We don't use periods. We just continue talking and continue talking and continue talking. And when we run out of ideas, we add another one of these and keep going, and add another one of these and keep going. And so this gets you fluid in your speaking as well. That is the key to your grammar. After this, when I've got my long chains of thought, now I can fill them in with tenses. And your tenses, past tense, conditional tense, continuous, it's the combination of these things. I need to have a passive voice, plus a conditional, plus a perfect, plus a continuous tense, all in the same thing. If I hadn't stayed up so late last night watching a movie, I would be more energetic and be able to do better today.
I hope that... was it a good movie, Chris?
Really, Mark, it wasn't. I should have gone to bed. But, so this is about your grammar score. And so we've talked about task response, which is the completeness and the depth of your idea. Have I talked about the complete 3 sides of this issue? Have I supported everything with main ideas and details and examples? These are like my legs that I'm standing on. My topic, main idea, detail, example. Main idea, detail, example. Main idea, detail, example. Here are the supports. If I'm missing parts of my legs, I can't stand up. If I cut the foot off the bottom of my leg, I can't stand on it. It's the same thing as your logical argument. It has to follow this pattern. And then your logic is strong. You can reach past band 7. Then we moved on to the connectives, which are first, second, third, also furthermore, moreover, to illustrate, make sure that I join together all of my ideas properly. And then we talked about grammar. Vocabulary. And vocabulary is the easiest thing in the world, but everyone makes it so difficult. Once again, it's better to use well than to have many words that you use poorly. It's about skill, remember. And it's not about memorization skill, it's about communication skill. And so, this is what happens, Mark, with people on their essays. People write a brilliant essay. They're getting band 8 in that essay. But then they finish their essay, and they read through, and they try to change all of the words that they used, and use something less common, something bigger, something more dramatic. They use synonyms. But the problem is that synonyms are all situation specific. And when I take that word out of its situation, the idiom that we get is like a fish out of water. Band 8 for your vocabulary is how clear your writing is. When I start to replace the correct word that I thought of the first time with a synonym, I reduce the clarity of my writing. Maybe it's only by 1%, but if I do this 2 times, 3 times, I've now moved myself down from the 8 to a 7. If I do it 4 or 5 times throughout my essay, now I've moved myself down to a band 6. Band 6 says common vocabulary, but with many mistakes. And so 5 or 6 times using a synonym incorrectly, and that's what you end up with. You have another idiom, shot yourself in the foot. So don't use synonyms. If you've got a wide-ranging plan and you've supported it properly, you have more than enough vocabulary to show that you've got a band 8. Trying to back-engineer your score by replacing words with synonyms is the path to failure and the path to taking that test again. And so that's it about writing. Now we're moving on to speaking. And so speaking is take everything that you've done for writing and instead of making it come out of the end of your pen, make it come out of your mouth. If you think of the speaking test, the task 2 on the speaking test. Where's here we go. Here's what a task 2 question looks like. We've got the question and the bullet points for the question.
Pull it in just a little bit closer, Chris.
There you go.
There we go.
3 bullet points. And this is what the question is like. You get 1 minute to make a plan to write this question. And then you have to speak it for 2 minutes. But if you look at this, it's the same as this. I've got a topic sentence. I've got 3 bullet points to talk about. And so in my 1 minute of preparation, all I need to do is think of the details and examples to put into this structure again. It's the same structure repeating over and over again. When I realize this, it makes my job much, much easier. And so, this is what we do. You follow the proper structure. You put your ideas together with the connective devices. First, second, third, moreover. For example, I use my complex grammar, which, while, when, where, to make my sentences really long. And this is the secret to a high speaking score. Again, remember, I am Chris. I am Canadian. I speak English. This is too short grammatically to get a good grammar score. It's also too short to get a good pronunciation and fluency score. When we speak or when you listen to someone speak who's a native speaker, their speech flows like a river. when I speak in short sentences, I am Chris, I am Canadian, I teach English. My sentences are too short to get this flow going. At my band 7 to band 8 level, I can start to use my voice as a tool to help the communication where I can stress the important words in the sentence. I can't do this if my sentences are too short. It just doesn't work. My river doesn't flow. And so by having these long grammar chains, now I can start to have that flow going in my voice. I can use my tones and my stresses as tools, and it aids in the communication. It makes my speaking easier to understand. And so band 5 sounds like chop, chop, chop. I am Chris. I am Canadian. Band 6, now I can start to speak. My sentences are longer. I'm able to speak to the end of the sentence, but my tone is flat. I'm still thinking too much about what I'm trying to say. And so I talk like this, and it sounds like a robot, and it has no tone, and it's hard to understand. But then when the next score or the next notch is the band 8, where I can do this. Band 7 means sometimes it gets like this, other times it gets choppy, other times it's flat-toned, but I'm starting to get this in my voice. And so once you can do that, now you know that you're speaking at a band 7, when you've got that flow. But it's impossible to do until you've got good grammar and long chains of ideas to speak about. And so this is my fluency and my pronunciation scores. It's all on the grammar. The grammar is the foundation of everything else, these nice long chains. Again, you don't need to be perfect with the grammar. You can make many mistakes still at band 7, but those sentences have to be long. And once they are, everything else starts to come together. And so, this is pretty much the end. I should probably write up some points for the speaking, shouldn't I? But we're pretty much at the end of our crash course here.
This is awesome, Chris. This is fantastic insight. And, I think those who are tuning into this video, this instructional video, need to appreciate that, people are forking over lots of dollars and they're not even getting anywhere near this insight. And I'm not sure if we mentioned it clearly enough, and I'm going to pop myself back in here. But I don't think we mentioned it clear enough that Chris is a former IELTS instructor. So, and I shouldn't say instructor, an examiner. So Chris used to be one of the people on the other side actually looking at your tests and giving you the grades. So if there is anyone that's more well-positioned to do this, I'd like to know. But that's one of the reasons why I pulled Chris in. Just like I was a former immigration officer that helped me to provide or enhance the services that I offer to my clients. Chris is one of the guys who knows what it looks like from the other side. So the strategies, the things that he's teaching you are just so much higher at a different level than someone who's maybe just written the test themselves and now is going about trying to teach you what to do. So I just wanted to emphasize that, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Mark. I appreciate it. Yeah, as Mark said, I was an examiner for both the speaking test and the writing tests. And so this is information that you can trust. It is from my own training with the British Council, from my 15 years as a university English language teacher. I lived in China for 12 years. I taught students to go to England and Australia programs. They study 2 years of a degree in China and then go finish their degree in Australia or England or wherever. Really popular programs. But they all had to take the IELTS test. And so my job was, 1, preparing them for the IELTS test, and number 2, preparing them to be able to survive student life at a university in a Western country. Cool. So, yeah, this is what I do every day. I teach people to succeed on their IELTS tests.
Very cool.
Yeah. Any questions about anything, Mark?
You know what, Chris? I think you have done a phenomenal job of getting us all up to speed with some really, really useful and helpful tips within the IELTS process. Now, for those of you who are watching, I want you to make sure there's a link here on the site. I can't remember if it's down here or it's over here or where it is. But the reality is, click on the link and it will take you straight to Chris. And all I can do is endorse him, guys. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. You can listen to all of the helpful, I'm going to put 2 quotes in here, guys, helpful resources that are out there on the internet, or you can go to a source that you can actually trust, because your scores will make the difference between immigrating to Canada or not. So, Chris, it's been great having you join me, and I think this worked out pretty good. Once again, guys, for a Canadian immigration lawyer and a former IELTS examiner, we've put this little video together. It's chock full of awesome content. The technical aspects of it might be lacking a little bit, but who cares? You guys can sort through that. This is all about stuff that you can actually help, that will help you succeed with your IELTS exam. All right. Anything else to add, Chris?
I just want to say again, get your practice tests. You've got some steps now. It's the perfection of the steps that leads to the increase of your score. And so, practice makes perfect, everybody. Happy training.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.